In this class, we will be discussing one of the pioneers of New Indian cinema, namely Shyam Benegal, who has worked in Hindi all along and is counted among those who gave a proper shape and form to New Indian cinema as it manifested itself in the western part of the country. He was working from Bombay, though he is a product of the Hyderabad region. He came to the fore along with several others, many of whom were self-taught, such as Mrinal Sen, Basu Chatterjee, or M.S. Satyu. The only one amongst the group that we identify as pioneers of New Indian cinema working in the Hindi language was Manikal. Like Mrinal Sen, with whose hugely experimental and interrogative 1969 film Bhuvan Shaum, New Indian cinema is said to have begun, the Hyderabad-nurtured Bombay adman turned film artist Shyam Benegal is counted among the pioneers of the important movement where ideas and images merged in varying styles and idioms to question many previously held sacred texts relating to nation, state, caste, class, creed, community, and gender. To understand the films of Shyam Benegal, it is necessary to have a peek into his family background. Shama Zaidi, the famous Bombay art director and a close friend and collaborator of Benegal, has this to say, and I quote Zaidi, "Shyam comes from a large family. He is one of the 10 children his parents had. His father, a professional photographer, kept an open house and reveled in having a stream of visitors who would argue and debate the vital issues of that era." The place was Hyderabad, the period the 40s and the 50s. Shyam was fortunate in growing up in an atmosphere which allowed a cross-current of various influences. His father came from an orthodox Brahmin family, but was himself an agnostic who would not allow any ritual to be conducted in the house. He was a Gandhian nationalist. One of Shyam's brothers, who lives in Calcutta, was a communist sympathizer. Another brother was for a time a member of the RSS. From this quote, we can see how the mind of the filmmaker came into being. There were contradictory forces at work: political, ideological, social, and even emotional. Out of this emerged a unique sensibility that we have seen at work in his filmography. After his education at Osmania University, where he started a film club with which he was associated for quite some time, he came to Bombay in search of work. he joined advertising. And in this profession, he spent many years, in course of which he made hundreds of ad films and quite a few commissioned corporate documentaries as well, which blew the trumpet for state agencies and private sector corporations. This was a kind of contradiction that came to the fore when he made films, his first films. Ankur and Nishant are both attractive, if not very deep, critiques of the feudal order, with which he was conversant to some extent, having lived in the Telangana region, where feudalism was particularly strong in the days of the Nizam. From his very first film, Benegal came to be noted for at least three things. First, his choice of subject and the easy flow of his narrative, which at least for the first few years did not fail to communicate with his audience. Second, his humanism, expressed in his concern and sympathy for the dispossessed and the discriminated. This despite having served, so to say, an extended apprenticeship in the deceptive and dubious advertising industry. And last of all, the unerring eye with which he discovered newcomers and the comfort with which he could work with them. The Benegal assembly line providing an array of exquisite actors and actresses who in time came to be a part of the history of modern Indian cinemas. You will be able to detect for yourself certain resemblances between Ray, who was in a sense a mentor to Benegal, and Benegal himself. And yet there were also divergences. Ray went into subjects, whether of historical importance or contemporary relevance, in far greater depth and analysis. Storytelling, which came easily to both these filmmakers, were of two different kinds. This is something that we must not forget. To get back to Ankur and Nishant, one very interesting thing about Benegal's analysis of the depravities and deceptions in feudal culture and in the feudal order was that unlike other directors, Indian directors before him or even after him, he identified not land but sex as the unit of exploitation of the lower peoples, so-called lower peoples, mostly belonging to the landless peasantry. He actually blazed a new trail in our understanding of the Telangana feudal order in particular and the feudal culture, the feudal approach in general. After Ankur and Nishant, which marked a important beginning in Benegal's filmography, we come to another two films of his early films which are extremely important. One is Manthan, about a milk cooperative and the human dramas that are enacted around milk.
बेटे, तुम्हारा बाप घर पे है?
बाप अइया है, तमेरे को क्या चाहिए?
तुम्हारा आदमी घर पे है?
अरे तमे हो कौन?
मैं कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी से आया हूँ। तुम्हारे पास जमीन है या सिर्फ दूध बेचने से सारा काम चल जाता है तुम्हारा?
वो बच्चा कम करो वाला आके गया, तमेरे को क्या चाहिए?
इस दूध से थोड़ा सा नमूना ले सकता हूँ? इस दूध का थोड़ा सा नमूना ले सकता हूँ?
नमूना कुछ नहीं। हेलो,
गांव के सब लोगों ने दिया है, ज्यादा नहीं चाहिए, थोड़ा सा ले लूंगा।
थोड़ा सा? अरे थोड़ा थोड़ा करके पूरा भगोना ले लोगे। हेलो हेलो।
And the other is Bhumika, a period piece about a early Marathi actress by the name of Hansa Wadkar, and it brings out patriarchy and this artist's resistance, lone fight against the various men in her life at various points of her time. Art direction, concentration on details, the manner of storytelling, and very importantly, acting of Smita Patil in the role of the feminist artist. All this came together to make perhaps Benegal's finest film. This is a fact that is agreed upon by critics at home and abroad. These four films, Ankur, Nishant, Manthan and Bhumika, are the major points, highlights in Benegal's body of work. At this point, a few words need to be said about Benegal's Mandi, made in 1983, which followed Arohan, financed by the government of West Bengal, and was little short of a disaster. Mandi is a women-centric film that makes the camera enter or hover around a brothel, where goings of all sorts are marshaled in such a style as to give the impression of strolling through the marketplace. Paid sex is understandably the principal commodity in view, giving rise to situations or stories ranging from the hopeful or hilarious to the sad and even tragic. Shabana Azmi as the Madam and Smita Patil as her favorite girl come together to create a microcosm where human emotions of attraction and rejection are juxtaposed. The women are strong and assertive, as in many Benegal films, while manhood, in the form of Nasiruddin Shah, in the role of a pimp and server, is weak and subservient. The drama is played out following Benegal's favorite scheme of exploring the physicality of women and their refusal to see themselves as victims, even when they are pushed to subordinate positions in an insufferably patriarchal system. One has the feeling that Mandi did not get its due as a creative film or as a document of social exploration. In course of time, he made two films about which we talk, but deservedly not in such reverential tones as Manthan and Bhumika in particular. The first is Junoon, a period piece based on a novella by Ruskin Bond called A Flight of Pigeons. Takes the viewer back to the 1857 War of Independence, a married Pathan chieftain's love for a young Anglo-Indian girl, which ultimately does not bear fruit.
Mama? 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 Mama?
It was interesting but did little to enhance Benegal's formidable reputation that existed before Junoon. After that, we come across the film called Kali Yuga. Again, here it's interesting. The subject is more interesting than the final realization. It's about a subject that is very much talked about in India today when one hears so much about the development of the country and the role of big capital, indigenous and foreign, in it. Kali Yuga takes us into the dark recesses of a family which represents urban industrial elite. This is a film which promised much more than it actually delivered, but still it can be watched with interest so many years after its making.
डॉक्टर मेनन प्लीज यहाँ से जरा हट जाएंगे तो लाइट्स आगे ले एक्सक्यूज मी डॉक्टर मेनन प्लीज कम आगे एक्सक्यूज मी अरे यार मुझे भी फ्रेम में रख अरे लेना यार हैव अ सीट किरण यही हूँ अरे यार इधर पैन कर
Benegal has had a mixed filmography. He has made a number of exceptional films, but a greater number of films that the serious film viewer or critic can do without. That is perhaps because he has constantly kept himself engaged, making films, continuing with his ad film work, serials for TV, at least one of which is very well done. But the touch, the Benegal touch, was there for a long time.
सभ्यता की ओर इंसान का पहला कदम रहा झुंड या टुकड़ी बनाकर शिकार करना और साथ मिलकर बांटना। हर इंसान को पहले झुंड के बारे में सोचना होता था, फिर खुद के बारे में। झुंड या कबीला किसी खतरे में पड़ता तो हर एक को एकजुट होकर लड़ना होता।
As evidenced by the making of Suraj Ka Satwaं Ghoda, a very different kind of novel written by Dharamveer Bharati. Its treatment is like that of an absurdist comedy, but in some parts it is also sad, marked by a sense of loss on the part of the narrator. It goes to show that someone as gifted as Benegal cannot burn out completely.
अम्मू, अब उस पिंजरे से निस्तार नहीं होगा। ये घूमना फिरना तुम्हारे साथ की खुशगपियाँ सब खत्म हो जाने वाली है।
देख निगोड़ी, मेरे सामने हंसुआ ढरकाने से कौनो फायदा नहीं। बिहार से पहले सब हो इस तरह की हाय हाय करती है। हाँ।
In the final analysis, an artist is to be remembered on account of the best work that he has delivered, not his mediocre or forgettable forays. In this connection, we can take an example from abroad. We should not forget that one of the greatest post-war directors that the world has seen, namely Vittorio De Sica, his first 4 films soared, and compared to these, namely Bicycle Thieves or Umberto D, Miracle in Milan, or even Shoeshine, much of the work that he did in Hollywood is practically of no consequence. But we remember De Sica for his trilogy of Solitude. Similarly, the serious student of New Indian cinema will continue for a long time to study Benegal on account of his first 4 films. And even out of these 4, especially Manthan and Bhumika. Thank you.